Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning in the city of Chicago. No, the Cubs are not in the playoffs, but some other teams are, and we're already heading into the first part of the offseason, which means, of course, we continue our report cards. We started with Jed Hoyer yesterday, Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo, Sarah running the ones and twos before she also leaves for London. Pretty soon, It's just going to be the three of us sitting here, and everybody else is going to be over by Big Ben.
Yeah. It'd be like when your parents went out of town and you really want to throw a party.
We should throw a big one.
There's a huge Rager Project X style party in this office.
We could have Blue Moon around the outside of the whole room, just lined up all the way around for people, and then donuts in that middle glass cube area.
And then we could play ping pong.
And that's a party.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And they can have all the fun they want. Brags from the Eiffel Tower, blah, blah, blah.
That's Europe, man.
I would
America.
say so far our off-season content, our best off-season content has been me and Ryan's ping pong's off-season series.
We have gotten more viewers than I would have expected on that.
Yeah. We're setting a high bar for ourselves, aren't we?
If you don't know, we live stream it from my Twitter account
every
day after every show.
Did you win again yesterday?
No, Ryan won yesterday.
Oh, so you guys are trying to make it interesting.
Off-season series is 3-2. I lead.
It's a pretty even matchup here, Luke.
Me and Ryan are pretty even, but last offseason we played every day after each show.
Yeah.
So now we're taking it up a notch. We want to show people how good we are now.
Oh, yeah.
We've set our level for our best content of the offseason will be the two of these guys playing ping pong, and the Cubs hopefully will be able to reach that level as well.
Yeah.
With excitement this offseason.
Also, credit to Luke. He did buy lunch for us last week.
He did. It's true.
And I did.
And I'm open to making going to lunch after every show a once a week thing. I'm open to that.
Are we paying for it once a week?
Well, we can all switch off. Luke bought last time,
Yeah.
Me or Ryan can bet.
I was thinking maybe we go to that fancy Monteverde place when Ryan pays.
Ooh, good luck with that.
Huh?
Good luck.
I'll excuse myself to go to the bathroom and then I won't come back.
Yeah, one of those. Is Ryan coming back? I don't think he is.
I think he's dining and dashing.
Sarah, when do you leave for London? Tonight?
No, I leave tomorrow morning. My flight leaves at 8:10, so that's why I'm working the afternoon shows today because I have to go to bed.
And have you ever been to London?
I have, yeah. I was in London a couple months ago, actually, with my mom. We did
She was just there.
Yeah, I was just there. I was there for a week with my mom. And then a month after I got back, Jake asked me to come on the trip. And so I said, okay.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Never
so I'm
pass up
excited.
a chance to go to London.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
2024, the year of London for Sarah.
Yeah, and if there's any London people out there, which I know we do have a London fan. Rachel, yes, there are still tailgate tickets and event tickets for sale if she wanted and other London people wanted to meet up with us in London. So those are still available on truetravel.com. Yeah.
Nice. I hope Rachel's okay. I haven't seen her in the chat in a long time.
I know.
She might have just been so fed up with what the Cubs were putting out there.
Don't blame her.
Season. Today, our grades yesterday, Megan Montemurro was here. You can go back and see that if you missed that episode. We graded Jed Hoyer, and you can imagine that they weren't great. Now, but he hasn't been fired like Robert Saleh of the Jets.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers, coach killer. That's another podcast. Maybe they'll do that one in London. Today, we grade the two most veteran players on the team, right? As far as tenure on the Cubs. So we have Ian Happ and Kyle Hendricks we will get to. But you guys have, before we do that, you guys have the ping pong thing, which is starting to get heated. This is the first time since 1995 that the Divisional Series are all tied at 1-1. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it. And frankly, a lot of the games have been really exciting.
Yeah, there's been a couple that were like, was it the 10-2 game, Padres, Dodgers over the weekend? Like, there's been a couple like
the Mets
that.
and Phillies have been spectacular,
yeah,
too.
that's been, I mean, even go back to the wild card series. The wild card series, I feel like every game was awesome. It feels like every DS game has been really good, except for maybe a couple. But yeah, that's especially when your team obviously isn't in the playoffs, like, and you want to still watch it. Like, all you can ask for is really good games, like, regardless of if you have a rooting interest in any of the teams or not. Like, just good playoff baseball, because we love playoff baseball. Like, playoff baseball is one of the best parts about sports to me. And to see just good game after good game, heated rivalries, right, all over the place. It makes watching playoff baseball a lot of fun, even though I would rather be covering it. It would be a lot more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news is at least I'm not having to go through the roller coaster of anxiety and emotions as a fan of any of these teams. It's a lot. I will admit it is fun to watch the other fan bases freak out more so than myself. If there is any if you wanted me to give you a spin zone about the Cubs not being in the postseason, I guess that might be the only thing I can give you. But yeah, I mean, every team's been fun. The Royals going into New York, winning last night. The Tigers,
to the dismay of Bob Costas,
yes.
Some might say.
The Tigers, the Kerry Carpenter hitting that 3-run shot off the best closer in baseball.
Yeah.
He gave up 5 earned runs the entire season, gives up a 3-run homer in a playoff game. Like, just one of the reasons playoff baseball is awesome is the most unlikely thing to happen is more likely to happen. And we've seen it these last handful of days with some of the best closers in baseball, or at least the highest paid ones, giving away games. Josh Hader, Devin Williams, and Edwin Diaz, and then Emmanuel Clase yesterday. So I've enjoyed watching a lot of the games, and I've enjoyed watching all the teams I hate suck.
I think it just goes to show, like, this is not an excuse for the Cubs, because clearly their bullpen was not set up the way it needed to be in the offseason, and Jed has now even admitted it wasn't ready to withstand what he hoped for and all the injuries. But even when you have a great closer, bad things can happen at the end of a game. And that's why Mariano Rivera was so incredible.
And he even blew a game.
And he even blew a game. But look at all these games, these teams that thought they had, well, if we can get it to our guy, this door is shut and it is over. Not the case. Mm-hmm. Even go back to 2016 when he played Cleveland, it was like, all they have to do is get it to their bullpen and the Cubs are done. Not the case, right? So
it even didn't exactly happen very well for the Cubs either. We all like to forget about that 8th inning in Game 7, right?
Yeah, get it to Chapman. It's not necessarily over.
What I was going to say is that as much as pitching and bullpen, as much as all that matters, Clase giving up the 3-run shot to Kerry Carpenter yesterday, as awesome as it was still a 0-0 game, which comes down to you need offense. And in that particular game in general, you got the Tigers got the big hit to score runs, but to me, I'm obviously not a Tigers or a Guardians fan, but as a baseball fan watching it, it's more about the fact that Cleveland couldn't score any runs. And I know Screwball is the best pitcher on the planet right now.
Wow.
But to me, it's always going to come back to, are you able to put runs on the board? That way you're not putting your bullpen into a situation where it's a 1-run game or whatever. Now, do you need your bullpen to lock it down for you in games like that sometimes? Absolutely. But when we talk about, you want to use the Cubs as an example, the Cubs were in so many 1-run games and so many games where they couldn't put runs up on the board that we sit here and we complain about the bullpen a ton. But again, it just feels like there has to be a balance where you need that good bullpen and pitching, but you also need a consistent and competent offense that can put up more than just 1 or 2 runs, or even there were so many games where they wouldn't even score at all. So I'm using that game as an example, but there's obviously other ways that other games in this postseason that you can look at and be like, this is why the Cubs need to do this to make their team better.
I think it's like to kind of expand on that. A lot of it is just situational hitting, right? Like Kerry Carpenter's home run is a situational hit. Like Nick Castellanos, couple situational hits the other day. Like it's harder to score in the postseason for whatever reason. We just know that it's harder to score in the
better
postseason.
Pitching.
You see you're facing the other team's best pitchers pretty much every game. You look at the scores. I mean, there have been some high scoring games for sure, but there's also been a lot of low scoring games in this postseason, like games that are 0-0 through 7 innings, all that stuff. So I don't necessarily. I mean, and obviously offense matters, of course. Like I agree with that for sure, but I think it goes even deeper to like being able to hit situationally that we're, depending on what the situation calls for. And like that kind of stuff, especially in a playoff series, is so random. Like you can't guarantee that no matter like how good of an offense your team is in a series where the first 1 to 3 wins, or even a wild card series 1st to 2. Like you can't guarantee that no matter if you did have the best offense in baseball, that your guys are going to get those hits because it's such a small sample compared to 162, right? But I mean, you think about with the Cubs, that 2-month period in May and June where they weren't hitting, like the offense overall was bad, but like the biggest like hole in the offense and the reason why that offense was so bad was because you look at their numbers with runners in scoring position and high leverage moments and, guys on second and third, less than 2, whatever it was, their numbers were bad. They were among the best. I think in some cases, they think they were the worst in baseball, if not second worst to the White Sox, right? Like, that's how bad it was. And so, over 162 games, like, that stuff tends to balance out, especially if you do have a really good offense. But in a playoff series, it's so hard to do that. It's so hard to, like, say, again, it's just so hard to say, like, the best offense in baseball is going to get it done because we've already seen a few times where the best offenses in baseball aren't scoring a ton of runs in a game, right? The Yankees scored 2 runs yesterday. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers scored 2 runs the other day. Like, I'm not necessarily pushing back, but I think like that's downplaying how important pitching is in the postseason because if you can go and shut down an offense in one game, that increases your ability to win that series. Again, a short, small sample series that exponentially increases your chance of winning that. So I do think. Well, again, I agree. Like offense is super important in baseball in general, but especially in the postseason. Like you're actually kind of seeing like how important pitching is to winning playoff games and playoff series.
You got to have everything. Yeah. You have to have Chris Bryant. You have to have Lester. You have to have Hendricks. You get like when the Cubs won it. That's one of the great. They were a really good team all season long, and there weren't many holes on that team. Really, they had a leadoff man. They had relievers. They had starting pitchers, they had position players, they had home run guys, they had Zobrist who did a little bit of everything. That's the kind of team you're trying to build again. I don't know how long it's going to take to build it. It seems to be taking a long time. But one thing for me, when I see 1-1 in these series and you watch every game, I'm not on pins and needles because I don't have a rooting interest in most of them, but you can still feel the excitement of the crowd.
Yeah.
And you can still feel the excitement of the game. And it makes me a little jealous that it seems like it's getting to be longer and longer and further away from when Cubs fans were able to experience that.
And something that we've talked about all season, the stars come out to play in October. Yeah. Talked about last week how Machado and Tatis had down years, considerably what they were projected to have and just what we've seen throughout their entire careers. And they played a pivotal part in the Padres beating the Dodgers, not just beating, but like pounding the Dodgers in game 2 of that series, right? And then you look at other games in this.
And there's the Kerry Carpenters of the world.
Right. Well, I think Kerry Carpenter is a guy that certainly has a bright future, but he doesn't have the resume of the guys we just mentioned, right? But, Skubal, who has emerged as like a superstar starting pitcher. It's crazy how he is – played such a big factor in the Tigers' success. Yeah. And he doesn't score runs. He just doesn't allow runs. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's Arrieta-esque in 15 in a way.
Okay, we're going to get to our report cards after a quick break. Cody's going to tell us about one of our great sponsors that can really help you out.
Game time. Justin Timberlake coming back to Chicago this month.
Oh, wow.
If you didn't know.
You've seen him already once.
I have. I'm not going, but if I wanted to, I'd go on Game Time because, if I want to get the best ticket, the cheapest ticket, and wait till the last minute, like I'm not going to go this time. But like if I change my mind, Game Time will help me out. You know
There
what I
you go.
mean? And that's one of the great things about it. But they have this new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Like I said, I use Game Time to go to a handful of Cubs games this season. I'm excited for bowl season. Illinois basketball is right around the corner as well. They go and play in Evanston against Northwestern on December 6th. I'm thinking about using Game Time if Mark Carman doesn't hook me up. So
Come on, Carm.
I'm very even though baseball season is over, for me at least, I'm still going to be using Game Time to go to all my favorite events. So it's such a great app ticketing feature that helps you get cheap tickets. All right. They have the all-in pricing feature, which shows the total up front with no surprise fees and at checkout, which I know Luke Stuckmeyer. This guy hates a bait and switch. He hates a bait and switch, folks. I hate
Nothing makes my blood boil like a bait and switch.
Exactly. They will tell you exactly how much your ticket will be up front. That way you don't click it and then see, all these fees afterwards. It's right. It tells you exactly how much it will be right away. So that's one of the things that I like about it. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. At Wrigley, you know how there's polls, and that can with Game Time, it will make sure that you're not sitting in behind a pole, right? So that's not just for Wrigley; it's for everywhere else too. So it's great to be able to see where you're sitting, and then they have the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry as well, with Game Time ticket coverage. And again, it helps you get tickets so fast and so easy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
Oh. Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver. It's the natural choice all season long, and nothing beats watching playoff baseball or regular season football with an ice-cold Blue Moon. Brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the season. A beer this good only comes around once in a Blue Moon, but you can enjoy it all year round. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. There's also an event coming up, which is Halloween. And, a lot of people have kids. The kids go trick-or-treating. If you're at home handing out the candy, I recommend putting a table up in your yard if you've got one, or maybe at your front stoop in the city. Just have yourself some Blue Moons for the adults with a slice of orange, just to keep them going, because it can be a very trying time for the adults that are trying to get through this.
Absolutely.
So the kids get candy and you get a Blue Moon. Yeah, I'm not giving it to kids, Cody.
I thought you were going to say
put it in their bag.
Hey, don't give the kids a popcorn ball. Make sure you give them a Blue Moon with a slice of orange. No, the adults.
The adults.
That's
big of you.
Oh, man.
To just give out free beer to the adults, bringing their kids.
That's really become a thing, like in some of the suburbs, where the parents that stay home and they set up parties, and the other parents go around, and it's like a beer crawl.
Well, I'm going trick or treating in Luke's neighborhood. I'll tell you that much.
Same.
I can't say that it's happening that much in my neighborhood, but I have been to neighborhoods. Edison Park, for sure. I can guarantee you.
He's just trying to hog all the Blue Moon for himself. That's why he doesn't want us to go out there.
You should.
It's got the slice of orange that makes it.
You're famously known for dressing up like David, like the Catman.
What day of the week is Halloween this year?
Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Yeah.
You should come in and dress up like someone in the office.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if I have the energy for it this year.
True.
Yeah, 2 kids.
Because I'm gonna have to run home and get 2 kids out trick or treating. So to be dressed as Santa, I did dress up as Santa the one time though. I'm sorry, Snucky Claus.
One of the wildest podcast episodes we've ever done.
I think I stayed in character the whole show.
You did, and I don't know if we really even talked about the Cubs for
I think I was out
more
there.
than 30
Imagine
minutes.
that.
I think I was out for that show.
Hey, by the way,
But I heard about it.
Ryan was talking about how important pitching is, right?
Yes.
I just was sent an email with the latest odds for teams that will land Corbin Burns.
I got the
this
same
offseason.
email. I was talking to Ryan about it earlier. I got the
Mets
same email.
plus
Did I get the
300,
email?
Orioles plus 400, Chicago Cubs plus 650 with a 13.3%
I did
chance
not get that email.
of signing Corbin Burns. Interesting.
Credit
Went to
to
my junk.
betmaryland.com.
BetMaryland.com.
How
So
me and Luke got that email?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I only.
I
trust
won't really
Circa.
trust the odds until I see it from Circa
Yeah, that's what I'm
Sports.
saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Once Circa Sports gives it to me, then I can trust it. These odds, potentially sus.
Probably.
Unless they become a sponsor too, then not sus.
Unless they become a sponsor too. Yes.
All right, so let's start with grading Ian Happ. The only reason I guess I wanted to start in left field. I think that's what we did last year. We went left field, we went around the outfield, but it also lined up with, then we can do Hendricks, so it's the two most tenured
Too long
Cubs
to say.
players, right? Longest tenured Cubs players currently on the roster. Ian Happ. Now, this is one of the more positive grades that I think you're going to get on the team, even though there was a stretch where people wanted him DFA.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was bad.
Happ is the only thing I can't explain about Ian Happ is why a player who doesn't hit 45 home runs is as streaky as he is. But as streaky as he is as a player, when you get to the end of the season, he's almost always right where he was projected. Ryan and I were looking at the projections,
It was pretty
and
close.
it's literally
Exact
like
projections.
decimal points off.
Yeah.
For what he was expected to be. His F-WAR was projected to be 3.7. He was just a hair below at 3.6. So I'm going to give Ian Happ, with his 243 batting average and his 25 home runs, I'm going to give him a B+. And you might say, Stuckey, that's a little harsh. The guy hit 25 home runs. He probably had one of the best offensive seasons on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible he'll win his third straight Gold Glove because left field is filled with bad left fielders. And I'll say I agree. But he didn't quite reach the projection, and Jed has now told us that players must exceed those projections for the team to be good. And I have been calling for somebody on this team to hit 30 home runs. He was pretty close. So I can't quite give him an A, but I'm pretty satisfied with the season eventually you got out of Ian Happ.
Yeah.
B+.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Happ. So I'm also, Sarah's about to put us on a thing, but I also am giving Happ a B+, and like a high B+. Like the 89.1. Like you can't round it up to a 90, but it's right there.
I don't know what counts for what number that has to be. Was an 88 a B+ in school?
I
88?
think it was like 87 to
87 to
89.99 to me.
Okay,
from,
yeah.
but
I'll go the lower end of that, but
I think he had a really good season, but I also think you can't dismiss what the struggles that he had early in the season. I think April he hit below 200. May was like a 230 something. Like he had his struggles for the first 2 months. Like we saw that, and he eventually got out of it and hit really well. I'm trying to look. In June, he had a 887 OPS in June. He had another 850 or something like that in July. Closer to 9 in August, and then back down to like a little below 700 in September. So a little bit more of a struggle in that month, but I think again overall he had a good year. I don't think you can dismiss the first 2 months, especially that May, when we talked about it, like the whole team for whatever reason slumped. Like it was up and down the order. No one was hitting well or hitting consistently, and I think if Ian Happ is able to just do better in May, and I don't want to like just put all the blame on the guy, right? A lot of the players deserve blame for the way that offense, the way the offense happened in that month of May. But just like for this example, had Ian Happ had a better month, maybe that turns into a couple more wins for the Cubs. Maybe he gets more clutch hits or drives in a few more runs, and that leads to some more wins for the Cubs in that month. I don't know for sure, so I can't use it to completely knock the guy, but I do think that was another big example of a guy that the Cubs really needed to come through for them and drive in some runs and get on base and just come through for them in that month where he wasn't, and that was a big part of the whole offense slumping as a whole. So yes, B+, it's still a really good season. I think he had an Ian Happ season. The last 3 years his numbers have looked pretty similar at the end of the regular season, at the end of the day. And so I think he met expectations, but I would reserve A's for guys who exceeded them.
Me too. Me too. And I almost went as low as just B. I know some people in the live YouTube chat are saying they would go as low as C because of when the struggles came. I don't know if I can say, hey, Happ was bad in the early part of the season, and that's when the season was lost, because everybody was bad then. So at least he bounced back. At least he bounced back and got to where he's supposed to be.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the 45 home run guy. Let's just use Aaron Judge as an example, Luke.
All right.
In April this year, in a year where Aaron Judge had an even better year than when he hit 63 homers. In April of this year, Aaron Judge, 207, 340 on base, 414 slug with a 754 OPS, a 115 WRC plus. The only reason I say that is because even the best players in baseball slump. And you would probably still give Aaron Judge an A+, right?
And I would give him $500 million as well.
Right. So
if it was
money. I'm not saying that Ian Happ is Aaron Judge. I'm saying that Ian Happ showed up and did what he was asked to do. You guys said that you would give an A to a guy who overexceeded expectations. I guess I can understand that. But for me, it's like no one on this team really exceeded expectations except for, no one on this team even almost – let me reword this.
There we go.
Not a lot of players on this team even lived up to their projection. Ian Happ lived up to their projection. He was projected for a 3.7 Fangraphs WAR. He ended up with 3.6. He had more homers than what he was projected. All right. You look at the projections and then what he did, he basically lived up to it. So how can I not give the guy an A? I'm giving the guy an A because he is one of the few players on this team that showed up and did what he was supposed to do. And in May, it wasn't great. April, the Cubs offense was at its best the entire season in April, basically. And it was because he was in the leadoff spot. And he got on base a ton. He walked a ton, even though he didn't get a lot of hits, even though he had like 2 homers in the middle of May, whatever. He still ended up with 25. He is not the reason that this team did not make the playoffs. If anything, because of him, they won more games than they probably should have, considering how many other guys did not live up to expectations. So, to me, there's nothing I can say bad about Ian Happ this year. Like that, he 3 consecutive years now, he has been as consistent as you could have asked for what I think is a complimentary player. A guy that I look at as, if you were to compare him to a guy of his role, or what his role should be, is like a Ben Zobrist and Addison Russell in 2016. Now, the Cubs, and this isn't Ian Happ's fault, this is Jed Hoyer's fault, and this is why Jed Hoyer gets a big fat F yesterday. Ian Happ, or the Cubs are probably hoping that Ian Happ goes over those numbers. They want Ian Happ to be like a 4.5 to 5 WAR player, but he's never done that. So how can I put a negative mark on a guy for not doing something that he's never done before? It's like kind of like how I view Seiya Suzuki. We all kind of hoped that he would be better than what he's been. He actually did have a better year for his entire career, but it wasn't enough to make the team better, So I just think Ian Happ, he's a guy that, and I've said this before, like he's a guy that once he's gone, we'll look back and be like, man, we really underappreciated that guy. I'm not doing it this year. This guy gets an A. He showed up and did exactly what he's paid to do.
We're not quite done with Ian Happ. We'll double up on him in a second, and then we'll get to Kyle Hendricks. But first, our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your fall. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. Stop into the store nearest you for expert guidance from their staff or select from their quality lines like Cresco and FloraCal. The good news, Tea Time disposable vape is bringing a classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course because we all need a little help staying loose on the green. And Free Spirit vapes and cartridges are all new from Good News. With a lush mango flavor, these vapes are perfect for tapping into your flower power. I know you'll find Greg Braggs picking up Mindy Segal's award-winning chocolates at Sunnyside, and you can too by visiting sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off. You heard me right, 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Again, HICHGO at checkout. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and older or Illinois medical card holders.
Luke, I got to tell you, we only have, like a few more weeks of sun, maybe even less, maybe only like a couple weeks of sun.
Don't say it like that.
And then we're waiting a few months until the sun comes
into
back
the
out
darkness
in the spring. But I will say, while we are going into the darkness, this is probably the perfect time to get some shades with Shady Rays. Shady Rays has quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. I have Shady Rays, when we first actually got the Shady Rays, the black timber ones.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of look like a wooden finish or whatever on the
wood
side.
grained, if you will.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, sure.
Those
so
are beautiful.
I don't know what it's called, but that's what it looks like.
Those are my favorite. I actually just ordered a new pair because I like them so much.
And you got the discount.
And I got a discount, which is coming. But I gotta say, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's code CHGO at shadyrays.com for 35% off.
The live YouTube chat is up and running. We appreciate everybody that gets in there. Try to be nice to each other if you can. Not always easy. Dave LaCroix had a couple comments earlier, Sarah, that I wanted to get to. One that I was all on board with. He says, Ian Happ, B+. He met expectations. If you expected more, that's a you problem. That's where you had me. And then you lost me, Dave, at if Wrigley Field wasn't one of the hardest parks to hit a home run this season, Happ would have had 30 home runs this season.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Stop blaming the weather.
No, I mean, it's not an unfair point. He played 81 of his games at home.
It is factually true. I can't blame the weather. He's not a 30 home run guy. This is right where he is. He does have the slump, so it makes it harder to get to those type of numbers.
I don't know.
I totally disagree with Godfather, by the way, who we need to get a little sunshine for the Godfather of the CHGO Cubs podcast. He says everybody gets an A or B. Didn't you watch last year's show? Godfather, we just gave DDF yesterday.
Yeah.
DDF. What don't you get about that?
Can't please everyone, man. Doesn't matter what we do.
Can't please everyone.
Godfather just
if it's not one thing, it's another.
The sun is out, but the Godfather is still in the darkness.
The chat ain't happy with us. But I will say, just because me and Luke gave Happ B+, like, doesn't mean we underappreciate what he did. Like, he had a
I wasn't
season.
saying that you guys didn't. I'm just saying that, like.
But I think what we're saying is we can't give a guy an A when he met expectations, like just because the rest of the team,
unless his expectations were 50 home runs.
Sure.
That's a different.
Yeah, like, Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani, like, of course you'd get, because it's hard to exceed the expectations you already have for him.
That's what I've Ghost is wondering. He says, Happ just ain't that great of a player. Not sure of the metrics we're grading on. Are grades based on projections, expectations, growth, improvement, impact? Sure, whatever we want to, because it's a podcast.
It's our grading.
That's it. Well, however you want to grade the guy. I agree. If you're comparing Ian Happ to Aaron Judge, you're not going to give him an A or a B. However, if you're grading him on what he was projected to be, the type of season he had, what he delivered for the Cubs, what he meant to the Cubs, that alters all of it. Cody, that's the beauty of this. Cody is grading on a slightly different scale than I am. Mm. Ryan's grading on a different scale than both of us. Yeah. That's why we have different grades. Even though we watched the same games, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just discussion.
Yeah, it's just, I would hope the Cubs have a more rigid set of ways that they evaluate their players versus ours just kind of giving it on vibes.
Yes.
In a way. But no, I think for me, I can't give a guy an A who doesn't exceed expectations and really exceed them, right? Like,
right.
That's just kind of how, because when I give him a B+, I still think he had a really good season.
But Cody's grading on Delmetrics.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm grading on Stucky stats.
And I guess I'm just grading on vibes. I don't know.
And Ryan always just grades on vibes.
Some stats.
Well, you were talking about situational hitting, and Ian Happ was probably the most clutch hitter for the Cubs this year. He had a 165 WRC plus and high leverage. I don't know.
I'm saying I'm grading based on, did he exceed expectations? Overall, I don't think he did. I think he met expectations, which were good. Like he had higher expectations than some of the other players on this team, and he met them, which is a good season.
Sure.
But
I also them, and again, like Luke explained, we all have our own scale. It's like, well, if the Cubs had put in a star player on this roster and you got the season out of Ian Happ this year, this entire chat would not be saying what they're saying right now. And that's how I'm looking at it.
100% correct on that.
I know Ian Happ's not a star. I know he's not a superstar. He's a great complimentary player. I view him as like I said, Ben Zobrist. He gives you Ben Zobrist type seasons. You go look at the Fangraphs WAR for Ben Zobrist during some of the best years of his career, and he is a 3 or 4 WAR player, just like Ian Happ has been the last 3 years. So, like, if you disagree with that, that's fine. Like, I'm not here to tell y'all how to fan, but I think I'm making a great explanation to why I'm giving him an A. He did everything that you asked him to do. That's all he's done the last 3 years now, is do everything that you ask him to do. And it's on the Cubs. It's the Cubs' fault that he hasn't been on a playoff team, in my opinion, at least in this current era.
Well, the Cubs are saying he needs to do more than what he's projected to do. Cubs are saying.
Do you think he's playing to the level of a $20 million AAV player?
Yeah, he's right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That's why I gave him a B+ too.
Right. And so that's why it's like, to me, I don't understand anything lower than a B at least. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. Maybe I am being a little too nice, but at the same time, it's like when you view things, when you view the entire team, the team would be incredibly better if they just had the right pieces around a guy like Ian Happ.
Let's see.
My dad says.
Whoa, hold on.
My dad says Happ C+, especially for what he's getting paid. My dad thinks that Ian Happ is overpaid. There's
a lot of people who think he's overpaid.
I haven't agreed with him on that, but
well, I mean,
everyone's entitled to their opinion. So, but I do.
Your dad
think
is the mayor of Elk Grove,
That's
so
true.
I don't disagree with that very often. So
sorry, Dad. Sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to put you on blast right there. I just laughed.
We got to get him in studio.
Yeah,
put him in the chair one day.
he can come in for me.
Or me.
Yells at Ryan, "Go to your room."
I mean, me and Ryan already yell at each other enough. He can just come in and be me for a day.
That's right. All right, let's see if we can make the chat happy with our Kyle Hendricks grades, because nobody seems very happy. Only a third of the people seem happy with.
When is the chat happy with us at all?
Well,
maybe we put a poll in
They
there.
yell at us.
Sarah.
Hey, we got no thumbs down today.
There's a poll in
is there
there
a
for
poll?
Kyle Hendricks. Yeah.
Okay, Hendricks
Right.
about Happ.
So Kyle Hendricks.
I didn't do Happ for that.
Okay,
You want me to go first on Kyle Hendricks, Sarah?
go ahead.
I'm going to guess that just based on past podcasts, I will be the most positive grade for Kyle Hendricks. Why? Because I believe that you had to know who he was, and you didn't use him correctly. And I kept saying all year round, starting when we were at the watch party in Schaumburg, And I said, take him out. Have somebody ready to come in for him in the 5th inning. You got to have somebody ready. As soon as somebody gets on in the 5th inning, he's got to come out of a game. And the Cubs did it for like 7 more starts, and they never listened to me. But then, every once in a while, Kyle still exceeds. The problem is he was making a ton of money. So even the biggest backer of Kyle Hendricks on the planet can look at it and say, well, he didn't meet expectations or projections. He was projected as an F-WAR 1.1. He did, however, for all you haters out there, end up with a positive F-WAR, 0.4. Okay,
no one would have saw that.
Now that's not worthy of what was he, $16 million? It's not worthy of $16 million. He went out the way he was supposed to go out. Now I can close that chapter on Kyle Hendricks if that's what the Cubs do and are expected to probably do in this offseason. That's great. He even said, terrible season. Those are his own words, terrible season. I'll give Kyle Hendricks a D, and it's not an F. Why? Well, he wasn't a negative F4, and I still say a lot of the negative outings are partially, maybe mostly to blame by the Cubs not using him correctly. Could have been an opener.
Hey,
it's fair. I think I gave Hendricks a D. Yeah,
there it is. See,
just making sure.
So I'm not the most positive grade. I'm tied.
We're right there. Look, he had a very, very bad start to the year. First 7 starts was like a 10.57 ERA. Like it was pretty bad. And he admitted it too. He's admitted it multiple times. Like the Cubs kept giving him opportunities he probably didn't deserve to be giving. He didn't think he'd make it to the end of the season, right? Like just the way he was pitching. He went to the bullpen for 5 appearances, got the ERA down a little bit. I remember there was that one. He had Atlanta. He came in like a tie game, I think, in the 8th inning and gave up 2 runs, and everyone hated it. And like, okay, I understand because he wasn't putting him in a situation like that after he was already not starting very well. That was a bad showing. And then he gave up 3 to Milwaukee right at his next appearance in Milwaukee. Look, I think for Kyle Hendricks to go to a point where, like, at that point, it was basically like, how much more of a leash does he have before the Cubs have to really think about just releasing
ties,
him, right? I guess to his credit, he had 3 more appearances in the bullpen, didn't give up an earned run over, was that about 8 innings, 9 innings almost, especially he had June 14th against St. Louis, 4 1/3. Oh, I think that was in relief of Jordan Wicks, too. That's when Jordan Wicks hurt his oblique. So Kyle kind of came out with not knowing he was going to come out there. Give him 4 1/3, scoreless out of the bullpen. That's where you're like, okay, that's a good appearance from Kyle. We need to see more. Over his so right after that, he went back to the rotation, started 17 games, put up a 4.73 ERA. Not great, obviously, but I was telling Stucky this, doing the math prior to the show. What did we say at the beginning of the season? If he can give you 5 innings and 3 earned runs every time he goes out there as your 5th starter, you're taking that, right? That's what we said at the beginning of the season. That's like a 5.3, 5.4 ERA. So over his last 17 starts, he ended up with an ERA better than what if he just went out and did 5 innings, 3 earned runs or 3 earned runs every time, right? So there was improvement. There was a sense of turning the season around relative, obviously, to what he did in the first month and a half, 2 months, which can't, of course, be taken away because it was bad. Again, it was bad to the point where there was very real talk of like, maybe it's time to release Kyle. I don't think we quite got there, but it was definitely where, man, they might have to start thinking about this if it doesn't turn around soon. And to his credit, he was better, had a couple more clunkers in there through the end of the season, those last 17 starts. His September was awesome. I think he had like a sub-3 ERA or maybe right around 3 ERA, whatever that was. And he went out on a very positive note, his last start, the second to last game of the season. So, yeah, with Kyle, he was far below expectations, especially the first 7 starts he had, to the point where, like, if If you ended his season right there after those 7 starts, it's a very clear F. Like, no doubt about it in my mind. The way he was able to turn his season around, help the team win more games in the second half of the season, brought it up to a D for me. Again, as Luke said, he didn't end up as a negative WAR player, which, I guess I think,
take that
for what
it is. For the money, it is, but you were paying him for some past performance, and
you're paying him for hoping he did a lot better than that. Obviously, the projections said he was going to be better than that, but I think a D for me for Kyle is it wasn't a complete failure of a season, but it was also not a good season. I think he'll tell you that though he did have better numbers in the second half, it was overall not a good season for him, and a season that I guess we'd probably say here, and again, the expectation is it kind of ends his Cubs career at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're blaming, I know a lot, I said before I made the statement, I don't think he's in the top 10 of reasons you're blaming the Cubs for not making the postseason. I can come up with 9 other things at least that sunk the Cubs. He might be on the list because of the money he was paid, and maybe you could have taken that $16 million and gotten someone else that would have filled another void. But there still would have been a void in this rotation for someone to take up some innings. He's probably right on the fringe of that for me, and I haven't gone through the list, but you're going with they didn't have a closer. You're going with that they didn't have a bat. You're going with they stuck with ALLCITY too long. You're just going like item by item. I don't know that Kyle Hendricks coming up with just almost a 1 F WAR is on my list of things, other than the fact that he was making a lot of money. And maybe you could have spent it somewhere else. But how would you have felt in the offseason if Kyle Hendricks had gone to some other team, and you would have been left with another? There would have been a lot of Cubs fans that didn't like that either.
Yeah. By the way, to William Workman's comments, just to clarify what I said about the 5 innings, 3 earned runs thing, that wasn't like let's go into the season and he gives you 5 innings, 3 earned runs. It was when it was so bad, we were saying if he can just get down to if he was giving you 5 innings, 3 earned runs, it would look a lot better. That was the context of when we were saying that, not go into the season and hope Kyle Hendricks gives you a 5.3 ERA. So whatever.
Nice to see that guy hate on you a little bit.
I know,
he's
hating
been
on
shitting
everyone.
on me for the last week. I don't really understand what I did to the guy, but whatever.
He hates on everyone.
Pooping is the word we prefer.
Yeah.
Whatever. So before I say what I'm going to say, this does not explain how I feel about Kyle Hendricks and his entire Cubs tenure, and it actually pains me that I'm going to have to do this. But I'm giving Kyle Hendricks an F. The money thing is a big deal, especially with how this organization operates. That's a big, I don't care that Fangraphs said he was supposed to be that he was projected to be a 1.1 Fangraphs WAR. I don't care. It's the lowest. This is the lowest Fangraphs WAR of his career. Even lower. Well, okay, second lowest, but 2022. He only played in 6 games. That was the year that he got hurt. He was out for the year by like June. So 2021 and 2022 were the lowest outside of the season. Were the lowest Fangraphs WAR of his career. Those were injuries. I think we all kind of gave him that excuse that injuries was a big problem there. Came back last year, was a 2.7 Fangraphs WAR, and was a big part in that team even having a chance to make the playoffs. They outperformed their projection as a team that season, right? But this year, after they pick up the option, $16.5 million, he wasn't even average. And sure, is it on him completely that they missed the playoffs? No. Is it? I think you can maybe make the argument that him not being outside the top 10 of reasons why they didn't make the playoffs. I think I could probably come up with many things and how you would rank them. Maybe you would put Kyle lower. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The fact that he wasn't even average enough, just simply average, a 4 or 5 starter, to me is a big reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Because his worst performance of the entire year was when the Cubs absolutely needed him to be at least average. They had injuries to Tyone, injuries to Steele when he was at his worst. I give him credit. Ryan gave him a lot of credit for turning the season around and being better. First 2 months of the year, he had a 12 earned run average, right? And then he finished with a 5.92. It was definitely in the sixes for a large part of the second half of the season, but that last start of the year got him under 6. So in some ways, I'm happy for him in that aspect because his last start of the year was probably the best part of the entire season for him, being able to come off the mound like he did and throw that to have that 7-inning performance in such a emotional game. He's one of the biggest reasons on why the Cubs won the World Series. Absolutely, right? But if you're talking about just this season alone, the success of the team and all that, I don't know how you can give this guy a passing grade. And when he's even saying that it was a terrible season, I can't. I can't give him a passing grade. The only thing that I will give him some real credit for was turning the season around and being able to be healthy every 5th day to pitch because Jordan Wicks got hurt, Cade Horton got hurt, Ben Brown got hurt, and we all thought it was going to be a minimum stint on the injured list, and instead he missed the rest of the season. The fact that he was able to just go out there and give you some decent innings in the second half of the season, fine. But by then, the season was over, man. Like, sure, they got to within 3 games a few times, and then they would break my heart for the billionth time of my life, right? But when they absolutely needed him to be at least an average starter, he wasn't. But, again, I give him credit for finishing the season strong. But it just wasn't enough. And I was happy that he started throwing the curveball. That's my nice thing that I'll end with it. But I hate that I'm giving him an F. But for how much he was paid and how much that the organization relied on him, because if they didn't rely on him as much, then they would have gone out there and got another starter. Or maybe they would have been a little bit more aggressive earlier with maybe a guy in the minors. I don't know. I mean, they already had to use Brown because Steele got hurt, right? So I'm just saying that they were asking him to be basically what he was last year again with how much they paid him and the fact that they brought him back despite his age and all of that. So he didn't live up to any of it. And like I said, or like he even said, it was a terrible season for him. So it sucks. It absolutely sucks.
I don't think there shouldn't be any Cubs fan that sits out there and says DDF is a positive grade. Nobody wants to give Kyle Hendricks a DD or an F.
I don't think you pass school with straight Ds, right?
Well, D can get you through some classes.
Can
I did.
However, Valpo, baby. Let's go.
Nobody wants to give Kyle Hendricks a DD or an F, but we can all sit here, and I'm not going to speak for you necessarily, but I will. If he's here next year, it's a Cubs problem.
Yeah.
Everybody realizes the end is here. I think Kyle realizes it. I think the Cubs realize it. I think the fans have realized it. I think our grades reflect that. The end is here. The ending at what he did in the last game, that was as fitting as of a start you could see for a pitcher. So it ended the way it's supposed to. He's not going to get carried off on team shoulders like David Ross did, but he will be in the Cubs Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. That doesn't impact my grade for 2024. I won't go as far as an F because I think the Cubs could have used him better than they did, but his performance was a failing grade. It was a D or an F.
Yeah, I think one of the things that just kind of helps put the season in perspective for Kyle Hendricks is this is a guy who started 10 straight seasons except for one relief appearance in the regular season and one relief appearance in the postseason. A guy who essentially never pitched as a reliever. His season got so bad that they had to move him to the bullpen for a month. Mm-hmm. That's how bad his season got. And again, like I said, right there, it could have been an F. He had better performances over the last 3+ months of the season to the point where you still weren't completely comfortable with him starting games, but you weren't sitting there dreading Kyle Hendricks starts anymore, right? I don't think Cubs fans were necessarily doing that unless, people weren't, whatever, right? Like he had better performances where you felt a little bit more comfortable with him on the mound, or at least that, to the point where it wasn't going to be a bloodbath,
right?
He turned the season around. He had better numbers, had better performances, ended the season the right way. Didn't necessarily earn his rotation spot back, but when it came to injuries and he had to go back in the rotation, he had better performances than he did prior to going to the bullpen. So again, like you said, I give him credit for that. Give him credit for having numbers in the second half better relatively than what they were in the first half. I say relatively because the first half numbers were so bad that you have to put up better numbers than that just to stay in the team the whole year. So yeah, it wasn't a complete failure grade for me, a complete failure of a season for me, but it wasn't a good season for him. And like I said earlier, he'd be the first one to tell you that it wasn't a good season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, like you said, his September was great, but a large majority of September, every day we would come on the post game and be like, 2% chance to make.
I'm here
the
for the
playoffs,
ice cream,
right? Like, it's just, I commend him on it finishing the season strong and starting to throw that curveball more. Because the moment once he started throwing that curveball more, he started seeing more success. So I don't think he's going to retire. And if he goes wherever he goes, or if he somehow finds himself back with the Cubs on like a minimum deal, like I'm not against it just because you need depth and injuries happen. But he can't go into next year with the Cubs as like a bona fide number 4, number 5 starter on the team, in my opinion, with all of the pitching prospects that they have. But I'm not against bringing him back, and I'm not for re-signing him either. It's kind of like I'm just in the middle. Like, that's, to his credit, he finished the season strong enough to where I feel like he can at least be depth. But they have some young guys, and we need to see him play out, man. And just, to me, the biggest thing that sucks is just that what probably is his last season with the Cubs just didn't live up to what we hoped it would be.
Yeah.
And it was a big part of why they missed the playoffs, man.
When the Cubs sign Corbin Burns, there won't be room for Kyle Hendricks next season. Yeah. One final thought from our guy, Edward says, I give CHGO Cubs broadcast a C+ in their season-long shows. They met expectations, but did not exceed it. You guys need to self-evaluate and do better next season. You know, Edward, that's amen grade. And thank you. We play to the level of our competition and our team. And I was always happy with a good C+ in school. I would come home, mom and dad.
That's a passing grade.
Mom and dad, C+. Hey.
C's.
We're moving on to 8th grade. Let's go.
I finished my college. Tenure with a 2.9 GPA.
I think that's.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Is that
depends on C+? The scale? Are you on a 4
Probably
scale?
Probably C+. Yeah, because isn't a 3.0 like a B?
And look at you now. Look at you now.
Sitting here.
C+ in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Huh?
Went to the bar too much.
Nothing's changed.
Well, Edward, thank you. We'll try.
But yeah, thank you.
Maybe next year, B-.
At least you didn't give us an F, you know?
If the Cubs don't suck, well, maybe we'll get a B- next year.
I mean, again, we're going to continue to do these grades, and I'm sure plenty of people will disagree with this, but
Cubs were mid, we
That's
were
why
mid.
there are grades.
Hey, just accept it. The Cubs were mid, and we were mid. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. The report cards continue tomorrow. Hope you'll join us live at 11:30. It's the best way to do it. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.